Right, it's been a while since the last story time with Pumpkin. Now, there's a couple things you might already notice that's different about this one. First of all, it's not Fortnite gameplay you're seeing, and that's because the context of this video is more about the game you're currently seeing, which is Genshin Impact. And secondly, the gameplay you're seeing is actually separate to me talking. Normally for these videos, I'm playing Fortnite while doing the talking, but I thought about just changing it around this time. So I wouldn't say there's really a moral of the story or anything else like that, which I typically do seem to get. It's just that I feel like, especially around this game, and well, just with the internet in general, so many people don't think at all. It's like there's no critical thinking whatsoever. Now, when I say this, I'm not about to pretend that I'm above everyone else. I'm sure I've also had my fair share of just like stupid stuff. However, I feel like I've seen so much, to put it bluntly, stupidity that I can't even imagine myself doing or believing. So I want to say maybe around 1 or 2 months ago now, something happened which led me to then make this video, where basically sometimes I just feel like going in co-op, maybe helping people, that sort of thing. At one time, someone asked me whether I reckon they'd be able to get, I think it was Columbina, before she goes from the banners. So, to put it simply, for those who don't play Genshin Impact, most characters are only available for you to get within a certain time period. So they were worried about not being able to get that character in time. So they're basically just wondering from me realistically whether they'd be able to do it in time, or maybe whether it's better for them to wait until the next time they're back. Now, I don't have any screenshots of the messages from back then, so I'm just gonna have to say what I roughly remember being said. Oh yeah, you still have quite a bit of time before she goes. What's your current pity and are you guaranteed her on the next 5-star? Oh, what's pity? What do you mean guaranteed? I didn't explain to them what those terms mean. With pity meaning the last time you got a 5-star, and the guaranteed basically wondering what their last 5-star was. Oh, I've never gotten a 5-star before, and I have like 40 pity or something. Oh, okay. In that time, I'm gonna be honest, you won't be guaranteed her. How many wishes do you have right now? 8. I'm saving for a temple though, because they have a better chance of getting you a 5-star. What do you mean? Well, I have an increased odds at getting a 5-star each time if I do a temple instead of the single pools. Really? Where do you hear that? Oh, my friend told me before, and a video on YouTube did. Can't remember what it was called. That was roughly the whole conversation. As you might have been able to tell, yeah, I literally left at that point. I just couldn't be bothered. In hindsight, I should have probably stayed to explain to them, but I feel like they weren't going to believe me on it. So yeah, for those who don't realise, no, a single pool and a temple don't have different odds of getting a 5-star or anything. I'd argue, if anything, it's better to do single pools so that if you ever get a 5-star, you're not using up as many wishes. Temples' only thing about them is that it saves you the time of doing 10 single pulls. That's all there is to it. I just want to really get at how stupid it felt with them saying that. They were like adventure rank 20 or something. They were really new to the game. I'm guessing maybe their friend is a bit more experienced for them to have said that to them. But the main point I'm trying to get at is they are asking me for help. You know, they actually didn't understand the concepts around wishing I was explaining. And in fact, I don't think I said this for that little thing I did there. I believe they also didn't know at which point you were guaranteed to get a 5-star. When I was saying about guaranteed earlier, I'm just talking about the whole like 50-50 thing, where if your last 5-star was a standard, you'd then be guaranteed the event character. But I'm referring to when you're guaranteed the 5-star at 90 wishes. They genuinely knew almost nothing about the wishing system, and yet they were so confident that they knew better than me about something that's literally just a lie, even though I was explaining it all to them. That's really just what I'm getting at with this story time. I just don't get how you can be so confidently wrong. Oh, and here's another thing. Because that was the first time I've heard of that being a thing, I double checked. I went through the details on the wishing system, what those kind of people would never hope to read. I made sure to look up online about it. Just any kind of thing that would hint at it. Nothing. They couldn't actually explain to me why that was the case, by the way. They just said it was. I don't get why they can so confidently say that. And also, again, as you saw, they didn't even really know where the source was. Just simply that their friend and some random YouTube video supposedly said it. So that was the main thing about this story time. Now, there are a few other things I can think of, and specifically for Genshin again, it's slightly off from this, but where people are very impulsive. Like with the idea of building pity. Again, for those who don't play Genshin, to put it very simply, they couldn't resist their gambling urges, as you might say, and they effectively risk getting a character they don't want just for the sake of wishing. But what annoys me is basically whenever you hear about that term, it's because of people accidentally getting the character they don't want. This might be slightly off from critical thinking, to be fair. This might be more so to do with like decision making and stuff. But again, it's just, I don't get why people just don't think. They don't see the big picture of things, I suppose you could say. Now, of course, out of the two things I've said now, the building pity is a lot worse. The first one isn't actually a big deal because it's not like anything's going to waste. It's just kind of stupid because literally no one ever thinks that. And yet they're so confident about it being correct. So again, as I said, there was no real learning experience or anything from this. So I guess it's more so just a message to anyone seeing this instead. I'd say in a way, if it's something more complicated, you're probably actually going to be less likely to question it. Like with that example again, they didn't understand anything about the wishing, so they just blindly believed it. That's probably the reality of it, right? I mean, if you tried learning something about a subject you're unfamiliar with, you're probably not going to question it because you don't know anything about it in the first place. So I do kind of understand why that's the case. Maybe the learning experience is me as I'm talking about it right now. But overall, I just feel like many people just never think beyond what they hear. We could even take another example, something I've said before in, I believe, the first Storytime with Pumpkin I ever did. The comments around a video I did in the past, where people were essentially unhappy about the fact I was skipping through the story or something like that of a game that I wasn't really interested in playing any further. Now, of course, as I said at the time, maybe the problem is that I didn't clarify it enough. Just the fact I wasn't actually interested in it in the first place. It's also similar with when, for example, we had, I believe all of the comments back then were deleted, but I think it was especially when I was returning to Fortnite at one point on the MFL Clan channel. Again, it was something I covered in the first Storytime with Pumpkin, I believe. We had a whole bunch of people saying that I was like really bad at the game or something. Now, you know what these two topics I've brought up have in common? The fact I had quite a big back operation. I was in the hospital for like 5 days, and it took me, I'd say, probably about a year to fully recover. For the record, with the Honkai Star Rail video where people were unhappy about me skipping stuff, the point is that this was around January or February, so within like the first month or so of me recovering from that operation. I already had it in my YouTube posts and everything that I couldn't play intense games and just in general couldn't do stuff for too long because it was too painful for me. So I was quite limited of, you know, how much I could be on the PC. Why on earth would I put myself through extra pain just to listen to a story on Honkai Star Rail? However, of course, people like that who've only seen that video aren't going to read between lines like that. And they probably also don't really care unless I directly bring it up the way I have here. And similarly with Fortnite, of course my gameplay on Fortnite is going to be a fraction of what it used to be when I was at my best. I mean, funnily enough, I was actually playing with Trog about 2 months ago in box fights, which I think were mainly when people were saying I was quite bad at the game, or telling me to do certain stuff. Oh, that was another thing. telling me to decrease my sensitivity. Again, with the back operation, I did not want to move around my arms too much, so I benefited a lot from having high sensitivity. I haven't changed the sensitivity the entire time, and I'd say the gameplay of my last time playing Fortnite was pretty good. And again, I came to the same conclusion in that first video I made of talking about all of this stuff. People don't care. Now, of course, don't get me wrong. With the comment about Fortnite sensitivity, that's probably just them saying, you know, you can get better this way. It's not them trying to hate on me or anything. That would be silly to look at it in that perspective. But what I'm trying to get at with this, I don't think people bother to try and think. They don't want to use their brain for something they don't really care about. And even if they are wrong, they're very confident about it, as I said with that example. So yeah, I think that's about it, to be honest. I'm sure this can probably be taken in the wrong way, that I'm like still angry over people saying certain stuff. But yeah, the original point I was trying to get at with all of this, especially with the internet, when it comes to social media or playing a video game or anything, I feel like people quite a lot of the time just don't bother to try and understand stuff. And a lot of stuff, whether it's hate comments, people being stupid, or even if they are trying to be nice or helpful, but it ends up not being that useful at all, it would all be avoided if people just thought more about stuff. Anyway, I'm sure halfway through that I probably got a bit off track. And of course, even if people were aware of things like this, it's not as if that's going to change anything. And again, as I said in that first video, the best thing to do with all of that is just ignore it. If someone's wrong, most of the time it's not even worth it to try and correct them. So yeah, with that being said, I'll see you all in the next one.